The scribes and the Pharisees bring the woman caught in adultery to Jesus because they want Jesus to condemn the woman. The scribes and Pharisees accuses the woman of adultery. She's there, but the man caught in adultery with her is not present. Moses' law, as recorded in Deuteronomy 22:22 and Leviticus 20:10, requires that both the male and female be brought for capital punishment, which is stoning. The scribes and Pharisees bring the woman caught in adultery to Jesus, wanting to accuse him, to find some reason to accuse him to the Roman authorities. They have no authority to kill Jesus, but they want to bring him to the Roman authorities, stating that Jesus has blasphemed. They want to bring him to the Roman authorities, stating that Jesus goes against the law. They bring the woman caught in adultery to Jesus for condemnation. Now, Moses' law requires that one caught in adultery is stoned. But the Roman law also requires a trial. The Roman law requires that if the Jews condemns someone to death, that one must have a trial. Now, the scribes and Pharisees bring the woman caught in adultery to Jesus while he is teaching in the temple. When they bring the woman to Jesus caught in adultery, Jesus is in the temple and Jesus is in the presence of the people. Jesus is teaching the people in the temple when the scribes bring the woman caught in adultery. Standing there in the temple is the woman caught in adultery. The scribes and Pharisees are standing around her. Jesus is there, and the people Jesus teaches. If the scribes and Pharisees can entrap Jesus to agree with the law of Moses and say the woman is guilty, then she has had a trial. Jesus has condemned her, and she has been found guilty of adultery. Finding her guilty means that she can, at that time, at that moment, be stoned. If Jesus finds the woman guilty, if he says, yes, Moses is right, she's guilty, then Jesus condemns her to death. It would be entrapment. But Jesus does not respond to the scribes and Pharisees' insistence that he condemns the woman. They want Jesus to say she's guilty. They want Jesus to say, I agree with Moses. She should be stoned. I agree. That condemnation would cause the woman to be stoned. It would be a trial. And then the scribes and Pharisees could accuse Jesus of condemning a woman when the male is not standing with her. The scribes and Pharisees could accuse Jesus of determining, judging a woman guilty when Moses requires both the woman and man be present and both be stoned. It was indeed entrapment. But Jesus is writing in the ground as they demand, insist that he respond to their question. Moses says the woman should be stoned. What do you say? Jesus stoops down, he writes. When they insist, when they continually require an answer, he stands up and he says to the scribes and Pharisees, who amongst you, free from sin, let him cast a stone. This was not the answer the scribes and Pharisees expect. Jesus doesn't condemn the woman. Jesus doesn't give them any response that will cause him to be entrapped or accused. They have come to shame the woman. They have come to accuse Jesus. And the response Jesus gives puts them to shame. You, who is without sin, cast the first stone. Jesus says these words, and again he stoops down and continues to write in the ground. The Bible says in the 9th verse of chapter 8 of the book of John, when the scribes and Pharisees heard the words of Jesus, being convicted by their own conscience, they walk away from the eldest unto the least. When Jesus speaks these words, they were so powerful that the scribes and Pharisees are convicted by their own conscience. The power of the truth. They heard something they did not expect to hear. Jesus turns the light from the woman and shines it on their sins. The light was so bright. It was so truthful. They were convicted in their own conscience of their own sins because of the words of Jesus. You without sin, you cast the stone. They had come for Jesus to condemn the woman. And instead of her being condemned, they have been put to shame and they have been condemned. They walk away, leaving the woman standing with Jesus. No one is there. They all leave because they all are guilty. Leaving the woman standing in the temple with Jesus is proof that they were also sinners, that they also had sin in their lives. Jesus stands. He no longer writes in the ground. He stands. And when Jesus stands, he asks the woman standing there alone, "Where are your accusers?" You see, the scribes and Pharisees were simply accusing the woman. Jesus asked the woman, "Where are your accusers?" And then before she could answer, he said, "Has no man condemned you?" Where are your accusers? Has no one condemned you? She had not been condemned. She had not been judged. You need a trial to condemn a person. They wanted Jesus to put the woman on trial in front of the people so that he could be accused to the Roman authorities. She was accused, but she was not condemned. Jesus says, "Has no man condemned you?" And she said, "No, Lord." And then Jesus said these words to the woman caught in the act of adultery, "Go and sin no more," as is his tradition. He was always saying to sinners, "Go and sin no more."